Hello, I'm Jessica and welcome to my kitchen. One of the things I love is making plant-based dishes that are inspired by global flavors and ingredients. And so today's recipe is no different. Today's dish is Ghanaian red red. So this is a perfect dish to make plant-based because it's already 90% plants. And so basically red is a stewed black-eyed pea dish. Black-eyed peas are also referred to as cow peas. And basically, all you do is take all these delicious ingredients that you see here on my tabletop and saute them together and then stew them together. So we are going to get started with this really soon. Now, I am going to be making a couple adjustments to this recipe just because of availability issues, but also to make this plant-based. So this recipe calls for Scotch bonnet pepper. I don't have any Scotch bonnets, but I do have some ground bird chili, some African red chili. So I'm going to be using those today. I also have to make another swap. It calls for stock. Usually that's some sort of like chicken stock or beef stock or pork stock. I'm using bouillon. So I'm using Better Than Bouillon's vegan vegetable base. So this is a delicious savory add-in that's going to add a lot of flavor. The recipe also calls for crayfish powder, but we're vegan over here, so we're not going to be eating any seafood, any animals. So we're going to be using a couple of kelp knots. So kelp knots are just dried kelp, and kelp is just seaweed. And so we're using the kelp knots today to add a little bit of that seafood flavor to replace the crayfish powder. And then obviously red is a red dish in color. I'm even wearing red today. That was not on purpose. But the red gets a lot of its red color, not only from the tomatoes and the paprika and the peppers, but also from the red palm oil. So I don't have red palm oil. It's not necessarily easy to find here. I mean, if you go to like an African grocery, you can usually find it, but I don't have that on hand. So I'm just going to be using some grapeseed oil today. And now I also have my pan heating up and we can go all over the ingredients we need for the red. So we have here 1 pound of black-eyed peas. And so these were soaked and cooked until tender. And we use a 1 pound bag of dried black-eyed peas in this. We also have minced garlic. This is about 5 cloves of roughly chopped garlic. We also have some chopped tomatoes here. We have half of a large onion sliced. We have some red bell pepper. Like I said, we have our kelp knots. We have some ginger puree here. We have our bird chilies ground up. We have 2 teaspoons of curry powder. We have 2.5 teaspoons of paprika, another source of that redness in the red. Like I said, we have this Better Than Bouillon vegetable chicken base, and then we have some tomato sauce just to round it all out. So I'm going to crank my heat up a little bit to around 300 degrees. If you're cooking on a stove, medium heat, medium high heat over flame is going to work, and just adjust your heat as you go so it doesn't cook too quickly. So we're putting in a few tablespoons, I would say about 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil here. Now that is significantly less than you'll see used in recipes like this. I do want everything to caramelize and saute really nicely, but I don't want it to be too oily. So that's just an adjustment I'm making for my personal preference, but use however much oil you like. So first up, we're going in with these onions, and the pan is nice and hot, so we're sizzling right away. Then we're going to go in with our garlic. And we're also going to go in with our ginger puree. So these aromatic spices are some that you will see in a lot of West African dishes, things like jollof rice, so many different stews, and it makes perfect sense because they're just so flavorful. So we're just going to get these heating up in our pan, and that sizzle means everything is cooking really nicely. And we just want to let this saute for a few minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. We really just want the onions to get really tender and a little bit more translucent. Everything to be nice and fragrant. As the onions saute, it will begin to caramelize and release a little bit of their natural sweetness. So next up, we're going to go in with our spices here. So we're going to go in with our paprika, and we're also going to go in with our curry powder. Now, if you watched my jerk chili cooking demo a couple of weeks ago, you know that I'm not going to be adding the chilies in yet, because when I added chili powder, ground chilies to oil last time I did a cooking demo on Kitsch, I was coughing like I was about to die. So wait until you put your tomatoes in to add your ground chili pepper. So we got some beautiful color forming on this already. I hope you can see that in this pan. The color is getting really nice. But those spices browned up really nicely, so it's time to get some more liquid into the pan from our peppers and our tomatoes. And look at that. It's looking super red already. Very much looking like its namesake, red, right? And it smells so good already. Once that paprika and that curry hit the pan with the onions, and the garlic, yum. And the ginger, yes. So we're on to something over here for real. And like I said, everything's softening up. As I stir, I see that the onions aren't so rigid. They're really tender. They're kind of just bending to the will of my spatula. I'm just using a silicone spatula. So you see that everything's cooking down and melding together really, really nicely. So now we're going to go in with our tomato sauce. Add that right on into the pan. We're going to use our spatula here to just get every last drop of that into our pan. And then we're going to go in with our kelp knots. So like I said, these are replacing the crayfish powder in this recipe. This one has a little bit of a seafood taste. I don't want it to be too strong. Honestly, I just want it to be a hint to be true to the original recipe. So I'm just going to use one kelp knot and add that in there. So now it's safe to add in our hot chili powder. Like I said, this is ground African bird chili. We can add this in now because there's plenty of moisture in this pan. But the last piece of flavor we're adding in is going to come in from this better than bouillon. So we're going to go in with about, let's say about 1.5 teaspoons of this, because we have quite a bit of black eyed peas to flavor here, a pound of cooked black eyed peas, right? And then I'm going to just take a splash of water. And we're just going to stir that up so it loosens up. You want that broth concentrate to dissolve. All we have to do now is add in our black eyed peas. So I'm just going to put all those in here. So now I'm just folding in all of these black eyed peas into this red stew base that we got started here, right? And you see things have calmed down a bit. We're getting to the mellow simmer stage of this stew. The saute stage is fun, honestly. It goes fast. But you get to this stage and the stew sounds like what it's going to feel like to eat it. Very comforting, very calming. So like I said, I adapted this recipe from a traditional recipe that I found on a Ghanaian website. I've tested a few times, and these are the changes that I've made. Obviously, it's great to follow from a recipe, especially if you want to have a traditional eating experience. But then as you make it, adjust the amounts of the spices or the flavors depending on what you like. Because, you know, these traditional dishes like red or maybe like jollof, they're much like the dishes we have here, in that people prepare them differently in everybody's house, right? And so once you learn the base, you understand, you know, the main components of the recipe, how they come together, you know, what each component does, then you make your adjustments based off your preferences. So improvisation and specialization, customization is key in your kitchen because it's your food and you got to eat it, right? So I'm going to turn this heat down to low actually. And I'm going to add my lid back on. And then we're going to start plating up the rest of what's going in this global plant-based bowl while this simmers for a few more minutes. So first up, like I said, I made a nice big pot of basmati rice. So we're going to start off with a nice serving of that, going straight into our bowl. So we have this sauteed okra and collard greens with ginger and onion and garlic. So perfect savory complement. Like I said, that fibrous collard green, the slick texture of the okra really complement each other well along with the red. So we're going to give us a nice, very generous portion of those greens as well. We do not skip on the greens around here. And now it's time to serve up this delicious red, very comforting, very bold, but comforting flavors. It's so interesting how those flavors can coexist at the same time in the same dish. So get a nice portion of that in here. And that sauce is just draping over the rice as well. So it's like you got a bit of gravy in here. Looking amazing so far, right? And then It's only right. You got to finish it off with the plantains. We have these sweet fried plantains. I ended up using a frozen brand today that I just baked in the oven for 5 to 7 minutes. Here we go. I think we can fit 3. This little one is cute. Here is a close-up of our Ghanaian red bread, our basmati rice, our sauteed okra and collard greens, and our sweet fried plantains. And this is a bowl of comfort, a bowl of nourishment, a bowl of flavor, and a bowl of culture. So why not enjoy all of those things at once? So I'm going to do just a quick little taste test here. Mmm, so delicious. So comforting, warming. It's making me feel good on the inside. And so you're going to feel great on the inside when you eat this as well. And if you make it and share it with people you love, they're going to feel that love as well.